All right, let's dive into a story from boxing history. It's the Roaring Twenties, the golden age of boxing.
Hmm.
And we're tackling a question that still has people debating today. Did Jack Dempsey, the heavyweight champ, the guy with that killer right hook, did he duck Harry Greb, the Pittsburgh windmill?
Oh, interesting.
This whole thing, this deep dive, is based on an article from Boxing News. It's called Prohibition Blues. Did Jack Dempsey duck Harry Greb?
You know what's fascinating about this story is it's not just a simple like yes or no, did he or didn't he? It gets into like what it really meant to be a champion back then, all the pressures, the risks, the thought process behind every single fight.
Yeah, so it's 1919. Dempsey just won the title. He just crushed Jess Willard, and he becomes this symbol of power, almost like a mythical figure.
Mm.
And at the same time, you got this guy, Harry Greb. He's a middleweight, and he's known for this, like, really unorthodox style, just relentless, tearing it up in his weight class.
Greb's style was something else, really unique. Picture like a whirlwind of punches coming from all angles, constant pressure. Opponents never got a chance to breathe. Dempsey, well, like a lot of those heavy hitters, he was all about power punches, the more traditional approach. Greb's style, it would have been a nightmare for a guy like Dempsey.
A total nightmare, and Greb knew it. The article, it talks about how Greb was constantly calling Dempsey out, using the press, like building up the fight that everybody wanted to see.
Right.
But he didn't just stop there.
Yeah.
He was smart about it. He actually he targeted and beat fighters that Dempsey had already fought or was thinking about fighting in the future.
Yeah.
Almost like he was saying, hey, if you're not going to fight me, I'm just going to keep beating everybody else until you have no choice.
Wow. That takes serious confidence. Greg was a natural middleweight, but he took on those bigger guys without hesitation. I think he saw Dempsey as like his ticket to cementing his legacy. And he wasn't afraid to push the champ, back him into a corner.
And that pressure, that's what leads to them actually sparring. Not in some quiet gym. We're talking legendary, chaotic sparring sessions.
Oh.
These became the stuff of boxing legend.
Oh, yeah. These sessions were almost as famous as title fights. It was this incredible spectacle, two, titans clashing, but they also added fuel to the fire. People already wondering if Dempsey was avoiding a real fight.
Right.
These sparring sessions just made people talk even more.
So, okay, let's talk about these legendary sparring sessions.
Okay.
First one, New York City. They set up a makeshift ring at Broadway and 57th Street.
Wow.
Huge crowds going crazy. I mean, even Douglas Fairbanks was there.
No kidding.
And then, get this, during one session, Greb splits open Dempsey's eye.
Oh, man. Think about that for a second. You've got the heavyweight champ, the guy known for his power, and a middleweight marks him up in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Huge blow to Dempsey's ego, his image.
Yeah, totally. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
A few weeks later, they spar again, this time in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Now, Dempsey's people, they're saying it was to shake off some ring rust, but a lot of folks saw it as Dempsey trying to get some payback for that eye. And these Benton Harbor sessions, they were even more intense. The article describes them as just brutal back-and-forth exchanges. And there are all these conflicting reports about who actually dominated. Some people are saying Dempsey was holding back, scared of getting injured, while others insist he was giving it his all.
I see.
It's like trying to put together a puzzle with some of the pieces missing, right? You've got these incredible moments of action, but what's really going on, the motivations behind it all, it's all kind of shrouded in mystery. It makes you wonder what was going through Dempsey's head during these sessions. He's the top guy, the king of the boxing world, and here's this middleweight, not only challenging him physically, but starting to chip away at that image of invincibility.
Yeah. This gets to the core of what it meant to be a champion back then. It wasn't just about winning, it was about this whole mystique, this aura of being unbeatable. And Greb, through those sparring sessions, he was showing some cracks in that armor.
He really was. Okay, so we've got these crazy sparring sessions, this middleweight really pushing the heavyweight champ, and the public, they're dying for a real fight. What happens next?
Well, even with all that, even with Greb pushing for it, a title fight, it just never happened. And this is where the article really digs into, like, why Dempsey seemed so reluctant.
And one of those reasons, it seems like it was the money, right? The whole business side of boxing back then.
Yeah, definitely. You got to remember, this is the Roaring Twenties. Boxing was huge. It was big business. Champions like Dempsey, they weren't just fighters. They were celebrities, brands, And managing that image, making as much money as possible, that was a big part of the game.
So fighting Greb, even if Dempsey won, it wasn't really a good financial move.
Not really. There was more to lose than to gain. If Dempsey wins, like everyone expects, people would just say, well, yeah, of course he beat the smaller guy. Doesn't really boost his rep.
But if he loses,
Oh, man. Huge upset. Middleweight takes down the heavyweight champ. That would totally shatter Dempsey's image, probably hurt his future earnings, endorsements, the whole thing.
and that's where Doc Kearns comes in, Dempsey's manager. He was known for being pretty sharp, always looking out for Dempsey's bottom line.
Yeah, Kearns, he was a master at protecting Dempsey's image and making sure he got paid. He understood how risky a fight with Greb would be, and I think he was a big reason why Dempsey stayed away from it.
And get this, the article says that years later, Kearns admitted that Greb could have actually beat Dempsey.
Wow, yeah, that's a big admission. Almost like he's saying we knew Greb was a real threat. We made a choice to protect Dempsey, even if it meant people didn't get to see this potentially legendary fight.
So we've got Dempsey maybe worried about Greb's style, Kearns thinking about the money and the risk and just the whole financial reality of boxing back then. But there's also this other thing, this boost money incident, right?
Right, the boost money thing. This was a scandal, really hurt Greb's reputation, and it probably made Dempsey want to fight him even less.
For those of us who don't know about this, can you explain what happened?
Sure. Basically, Greb got caught trying to bribe some sports writers, trying to get them to hype up a fight with Dempsey. It was a desperate move to try and force the issue, but it backfired big time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Back then, sports writers, they had a lot of influence on public opinion, trying to, buy their favor. That was a huge no-no.
Definitely. It made Greb look bad, made people question his integrity. And for Dempsey, who was already hesitant, this probably just confirmed what he was thinking. Like, this guy's just after fame and money.
Wow, so this one incident, it just adds another layer to the whole thing. It wasn't just about styles or money anymore. It became about ethics, public perception, the whole deal.
Yeah, and it shows the power dynamics, too. Dempsey, he's the champ. He's got all the leverage. He can wait for the right opportunity. Greb, he's got to fight his way up, prove himself constantly. And sometimes that meant doing things that weren't so ethical.
But even with all these obstacles, the article has this quote from Dempsey himself. It's pretty revealing. He said, "I'd be a sucker to fight that guy. What would I get out of it?"
Yeah, that says a lot. It seems like Dempsey knew Greb was dangerous, but for him, the fight, it was a no-win situation.
Right, exactly. And you think about Greb, how frustrating it must have been. He wants to prove himself against the best, cement his legacy, but all these things are holding him back, things he can't control.
It shows that even in boxing, it's not always just about who's the better fighter. There are all these other forces at work, motivations, calculations, stuff that goes way beyond just landing punches.
So we may never know for sure if Dempsey was really ducking Greb,
Yeah.
but we do know they never had that official fight. And that leaves us with this question. What if they had?
The what if. It's what keeps everyone talking, the fans, the historians, everyone.
But beyond that, beyond just imagining that fight, I think there's something bigger here, a bigger takeaway.
I think so too. This whole thing, it goes beyond boxing. It's about ambition, legacy, making tough choices, knowing when to take a risk, when to play it safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you think about what you would do in that situation. Would you risk everything for a shot at greatness? Or would you play it safe even if it means wondering what if?
And that's what makes this so interesting.
So we've talked about, Dempsey's reasons for not fighting Greb officially. The money, the risk to his reputation, Doc Kearns maybe pulling strings in the background. But something I'm still thinking about is this. If he was so worried about Greb, why even agree to those sparring sessions? Those crazy ones.
That's a good question. I think it shows just how much pressure there was on a champion back then, especially in the Roaring '20s. Boxing was a huge spectacle, right? And Dempsey, he was more than just a fighter. He was this icon, like you said before, almost a mythical figure.
So maybe sparring with Greb, even though it was risky, it kind of fit that public image, like the champ who's not afraid of anything, always up for a challenge.
Exactly. He could give the public what they wanted, that clash of the titans, but in a way that he could control. It wasn't an official fight, no titles at stake, but it still created a lot of buzz, kept Dempsey in the spotlight.
Yeah. And the article had talked about how those sessions were just mayhem. Crowds going wild, everyone wanting to see these two guys go at it.
It was good for everybody, I guess, except maybe Greb. He's the one who really wanted that real fight, the chance to prove himself, but it just never happened for him.
It's kind of sad,
Uh,
Greb's story shows that sometimes talent and hard work, they're not enough. There's all this other stuff, business, social pressure, things that can really impact a career, even in boxing.
It makes you wonder how things would have been different, you know?
Yeah.
What if they had fought, as Greb have won? Would it have changed everything for both of them?
We'll never know,
Yeah.
right? That's part of what makes this so interesting, all these what ifs.
Mm.
But I think there's even more to it than that, something bigger.
Definitely. This whole Dempsey-Greb thing, it's not just about a fight that never happened. It's about ambition, legacy, making tough choices, figuring out when to take a risk and when to play it safe.
Yeah. It makes you think, what would you do if you were in Dempsey's shoes?
Mm.
All that pressure, all those risks. Would you take the fight? Risk everything for a shot at glory? Or would you play it safe, protect what you have, even if it means wondering, what if?
Tough call, isn't it? And that's what makes it so fascinating.
It really is. No easy answers. Well, that's our deep dive into the story of Jack Dempsey and Harry Greb, a fight that never happened, but still has people talking all these years later. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into history, another story to unpack, analyze, and hopefully give you some things to think about.